Tollbooth-episode 24. The humbug, who had difficulty remembering anything, went first. The little man leisurely recorded each answer in 5 different places, pausing often to polish his glasses, clear his throat, straighten his tie, and blow his nose. He managed also to cover the distressed bug from head to foot in ink. "Next!" he announced, very officially. "I do wish he'd hurry," said Milo, stepping forward, for in the distance he could see the first of the demons already beginning to scale the mountain toward them, no more than a few minutes away. The little man wrote with painful deliberation, finally finishing with both Milo and Talk, and then looked up happily. "May we go now?" asked the dog, whose sensitive nose had picked up a loathsome, evil smell that grew stronger every second. "By all means," said the man agreeably, "just as soon as you finish telling me your height, your weight, the number of books you read each year, the number of books you don't read each year, the amount of time you spend eating, playing, working, and sleeping every day, where you go on vacations, how many ice cream cones you eat in a week, how far it is from your house to the barber shop, and which is your favorite color. Then, after that, please fill out these forms and applications, 3 copies of each, and be careful, for if you make one mistake, you'll have to do them all over again." "Oh, dear," said Milo, looking at the pile of papers. "We'll never finish these." And even as he spoke, the demons swarmed stealthily up the mountain. Come, said the census-taker, chuckling gaily to himself. "Don't take all day. I'm expecting several more visitors any minute now." They set to work feverishly on the difficult forms, and when they'd finished, Milo placed them all in the little man's lap. He thanked them politely, took off his eye shade, put the pen behind his ear, closed the book, and went back to sleep. The humbug took one horrified look back over his shoulder and quickly started up the stairs. "Destination?" shouted the census-taker, sitting up again, putting on his eye shade, taking the pen from behind his ear, and opening his book. "But I thought," protested the astonished bug. "Destination?" he repeated, making several notations in the ledger. "The castle in the air," said Milo impatiently. "Why bother?" said the census-taker, pointing into the distance. "I'm sure you'd rather see what I have to show you." As he spoke, they all looked up, but only Milo could see the gay and exciting circus there on the horizon. There were tents and side shows and rides and even wild animals. Everything a little boy could spend hours watching. "And wouldn't you enjoy a more pleasant aroma?" he said, turning to Talk. Almost immediately, the dog smelled a wonderful smell that no one but he could smell. It was made up of all the marvelous things that had ever delighted his curious nose. "And here's something I know you'll enjoy hearing," he assured the humbug. The bug listened with rapt attention to something he alone could hear. The shouts and applause of an enormous crowd, all cheering for him. They each stood as if in a trance, looking, smelling, and listening to the very special things that the census-taker had provided for them, forgetting completely about where they were going and who, with evil intent, was coming up behind them. The census-taker sat back with a satisfied smile on his puffy little face as the demons came closer and closer until less than a minute separated them from their helpless victims. But Milo was too engrossed in the circus to notice, and Talk had closed his eyes, the better to smell and the bug, bowing and waving, stood with a look of sheer bliss on his face, interested only in the wild ovation. The little man had done his work well, and except for some ominous crawling noises just below the crest of the mountain, everything was again silent. Milo, who stood staring blankly into the distance, let his bag of gifts slip from his shoulder to the ground. And as he did, the package of sounds broke open, filling the air with peals of happy laughter which seemed so gay that first he, then Talk, and finally the humbug joined in. And suddenly the spell was broken. "There is no circus," cried Milo, realizing he'd been tricked. "There were no smells," barked Talk, his alarm now ringing furiously. "The applause is gone," complained the disappointed humbug.
I warned you I was the census taker," sneered the census taker. "I help people find what they're not looking for, hear what they're not listening for, run after what they're not chasing, and smell what isn't even there. And furthermore," he cackled, hopping around gleefully on his stubby legs, "I'll steal your sense of purpose, your sense of duty, destroy your sense of proportion, and but for one thing, you'd be helpless yet."
"What's that?" asked Milo fearfully.
"As long as you have the sound of laughter," he groaned unhappily, "I cannot take your sense of humor. And with it, you've nothing to fear from me."
"But what about them?" cried the terrified bug, for at that very instant the other demons had reached the top at last and were leaping forward to seize them. They ran for the stairs, bowling over the disconsolate census taker, ledger, ink bottle, eye shade, and all as they went. The humbug dashed up first, then Talk, and lastly Milo, almost too late, as a scaly arm brushed his shoe. The dangerous stairs danced dizzily in the wind, and the clumsy demons refused to follow. But they howled with rage and fury, swore bloody vengeance, and watched with many pairs of burning eyes as the three small shapes vanished slowly into the clouds. "Don't look down," advised Milo as the bug tottered upward on unsteady legs. Like a giant corkscrew, the stairway twisted through the darkness, steep and narrow with no rail to guide them. The wind howled cruelly in an effort to tear them loose, and the fog dragged clammy fingers down their backs. But up the giddy flight they went, each one helping the others, until at last the clouds parted, the darkness fell away, and a glow of golden sun rays warmed their arrival. The castle gate swung smoothly open, and on a rug as soft as a snowdrift they entered the great hall, and they stood shyly waiting. Come right in, please. We've been expecting you," sang out two sweet voices in unison. At the far end of the hall, a silver curtain parted, and two young women stepped forward. They were dressed all in white and were beautiful beyond compare. One was grave and quiet, with a look of warm understanding in her eyes, and the other seemed gay and joyful. "You must be the Princess of Pure Reason," said Milo, bowing to the first. She answered simply, "Yes," and that was just enough. "Then you are Sweet Rhyme," he said, with a smile to the other. Her eyes sparkled brightly, and she answered with a laugh as friendly as the mailman's ring when you know there's a letter for you. "We've come to rescue you both," Milo explained very seriously. "And the demons are close behind," said the worried humbug, still shaky from his ordeal. "And we should leave right away," advised Talk. "Oh, they won't dare come up here," said Reason gently, "and we'll be down there soon enough." "Why not sit for a moment and rest?" suggested Rhyme. "I'm sure you must be tired. Have you been traveling long?" "Days," sighed the exhausted dog, curling up on a large downy cushion. "Weeks," corrected the bug, flopping into a deep, comfortable armchair, for it seemed that way to him. "It has been a long trip," said Milo, climbing onto the couch where the princesses sat. "But we would have been here much sooner if I hadn't made so many mistakes. I'm afraid it's all my fault." "You must never feel badly about making mistakes," explained Reason quietly, "as long as you take the trouble to learn from them. For you often learn more by being wrong for the right reasons than you do by being right for the wrong reasons." "But there's so much to learn," he said, with a thoughtful frown. "Yes, that's true," admitted Rhyme, "but it's not just learning things that's important. It's learning what to do with what you learn and learning why you learn things at all that matters." "Well, that's just what I mean," explained Milo, as Talk and the exhausted bug drifted quietly off to sleep. "Many of the things I'm supposed to know seem so useless that I can't see the purpose in learning them at all.